Good afternoon and welcome to the 5,293rd meeting of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, Club 2500, District 6110. To begin today's program, past President Tiffany Egdorf will deliver an inspirational moment followed by guest introductions from past President Matt Davis.
Hello and welcome. What a beautiful crowd of people out here today. And y'all are noisy, which means that you're visiting, and I love that. Okay, that wasn't your inspirational moment. A man once dropped a small stone into a quiet lake. The splash lasted only a second, but the ripples traveled far beyond where he stood. That's what service is. Most of us will never fully see the impact of a kind word, a scholarship funded, a meal served, or a young person encouraged. But every act of service creates ripples that continue long after the moment passes. As Rotarians, we are not called to do everything. We are called to do something, consistently, compassionately, and together. And when people of action unite with purpose, those ripples become waves of change. Today, may we remember, service is never small. Leadership is measured by lives touched, and the greatest gift we leave behind is hope. Thank you for all you do to live service above self. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
We obviously have a great program today because we have a ton of visitors. When I read your name off, if you and your host Rotarian will stand and keep standing until we finish, it might be a while, but please do so. First of all, we have the spectacular Denise Dillon with her husband Jerry Dillon. Next, Rotarian Matt Davis has our district attorney, Steve Kunzweiler. Allison Hunt has Jana Brookover, who's a guest of our speaker today. Bonnie McElroy is a guest of our speaker today. Braden Elliott is a guest, Brandon Elliott is a guest of Braden. Boy, his handwriting's as bad as mine. Braden somebody. Matt Price is a guest of Carl Vincent, our president. Zach Roots is, was LinkedIn online. We're just starting to get some of those, and that's great. Kenny Hoffman was LinkedIn online. Amy Connor is a guest of our speaker today. Sam Mulready is a guest of Brian Jackson. Jackson Laymeyer is a guest of Brian Jackson. John Killian is a guest of Brian Jackson. Brian could have just been the whole Rotary Club today. All right, he told me how to do this. Solomon Dioncio, close? Guest of Brian Jackson. Any goofing up of your name was my fault. Terry Flatt used to be a member in Sand Springs, and he came in online. Caitlin Klimper, online. Linda Bogger, online. Boy, this is amazing. Harlan Pinkerton, since I've known since I was born, much to his chagrin. Jeremy Nichols, and it doesn't say who the host Rotarian is.
He's a Rotarian.
He's a Rotarian. Okay. Scott Willis is a guest of Curtis Craig. David Sullivan is a guest of Curtis Craig. Jim Ransbottom is a guest of Curtis Craig. And Callum Reffel is a guest of Mike Homan. Thank you all for coming. Come again soon.
I think golf is my new favorite topic for our Rotary Club meetings because it brings in so many guests. Holy cow, Colton, we didn't know how popular you were, my friend. Well, I see Jenny Graham is here. And Jenny, I have to report to you a little bit of issues with journalistic integrity. This is this month's issue of Rotary Magazine. And this month's issue of Rotary Magazine features an extensive article on Route 66. They quote some great authorities like Michael Wallace, and then they quote a scurrilous character named Carl Vincent. If you get a chance, you might take a look at that article. It is well done, and it's a great reflection of Rotary all along Route 66. On your table is the 2026-2027 Rotary Club of Tulsa budget as approved by the board, and it was emailed to the membership on May 15th. Printed copies have been on the table the past couple weeks, giving you an opportunity to review it, ask questions. And before we take a vote on this, I want to thank Budget Chair Dave Bryant, Tommy Lynn Segrist, and the Budget Committee for the work they put into this. I have been the Budget Chair, and it is a lot of work. And their thoughtful work, careful planning, and commitment to the stewardship of our club's resources are greatly appreciated. Please join me in thanking them for their work. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve this budget. We got a motion from Mac Finlayson, and we have a second from Scott Philstrup. So we'll take that. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed by the same sign? Thank you very much. I think that motion passes. Cody, what do you think? Go with that. All right. So today is kind of a special day for our club. Today is a 20th anniversary. We get to celebrate a truly special individual who has dedicated 2 decades of service to our club. On June the 1st, Tommy Lynn Segrist celebrates her 20th anniversary as our club accounting assistant. For 20 years, not only is she fashionable, she's efficient. For 20 years, Tom Lynn has faithfully supported the Rotary Club of Tulsa with professionalism, dedication, and care, helping keep our club running smoothly, mostly behind the scenes, except when she wants attention. Her commitment, reliability, and countless contributions have made a lasting impact on our members and our mission. We're deeply grateful for your years of service, Tommy Lynn, and for all the reimbursement checks you get out in such a timely manner. We recognize your hard work and the positive spirit and good humor that you bring to our club every time we meet. Please join me in congratulating Tommy Lynn and thanking her again for this remarkable milestone. Well, today is a special day for another reason. We're going to talk about real DNA, not just Rotary DNA. If Rotary had a genetic code, it would be written in the 2 stories that I'm going to tell you about, stories of families whose commitment to service spans generations, shaping not only their lives, but the very legacy of our club. For nearly a century, for 97 years and counting, the name Clark has been woven into the fabric of this club. It began with member Steve Clark, who's sitting over here next to Jan Lobb with Lou Ann. It began with Steve Clark's grandfather, L.C. Clark Sr., who served as president of our club 1951-52. Steve's father, L.C. Clark Jr., followed as a Rotary member, and he was a club president 1966-67. He became the first second-generation president of our club. Continuing that extraordinary legacy, Steve Clark served as the club's first third-generation president in 2004-2005, a powerful reflection of Rotary values passed from one generation to the next. Sponsored by his father in 1985, Steve has honored that legacy through more than 40 years of dedicated leadership and service. He's chaired the Long Range Planning Committee, served as a trustee. He's led key initiatives for our club, including the Tulsa Rotary Community Fund 2 times, as well as the IBA Committee. His leadership has also been extended to roles as chairman of the board, director at large, and secretary treasurer. Through every one of those roles, Steve has carried forward not just a family tradition, but the very DNA of Rotary: service above self, leadership with purpose, and a commitment to those who will follow. Steve, we're grateful for your presence here today and for your service to our club over the years and your family's dedication to this organization. You look good in that color polo shirt, too. It complements your complexion. Okay, well, we'll take the OSU orange. And the Clark family is not alone in that legacy. For generations, other families within the Rotary Club of Tulsa have also passed down the values of service, leadership, and community commitment from one generation to the next. Among them is another family whose roots run just as deep, the Patterson family. Many of you recognize that. Rotary legacy often begins with a single act of service, but in the Patterson family, it became a multi-generational calling. In the 1920s, 3 Patterson brothers came to Tulsa and established a steel company, helping shape the growth of our city. Around that same time, Alfred Patterson, the brother of our member Lindsay Patterson's grandfather, joined the Rotary Club of Tulsa. At that time, it was the only Rotary Club in the city, and he planted seeds of generational service. Lindsay's grandfather, Nathan Patterson, joined around 1934 and remained an active and devoted member until 1989, serving for more than 5 decades, including time as a director. That commitment extended throughout the family. Nathan's brother, Parker Patterson, was a founder and the first president of the Will Rogers Rotary Club here in Tulsa, and later served as the district governor for our District 6110. His son, Lewis Patterson, continued the tradition as a member of the Will Rogers Club. But back to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. Lindsay's uncle, Sid Patterson, who many of us in this room knew well, joined in 1953, and he served as president of this club in 1967-68. During a time when Rotary limited its membership to one individual per classification, Lindsay's father, Ed Patterson, had to go be a part of the Kiwanis instead of Rotary because his classification was already taken. But he later joined the Rotary Club of Tulsa, where he was a dedicated member from 1983 to 2012, serving for 29 years. Carrying this extraordinary legacy forward, Lindsay was sponsored into the club in 2003 by both her father, Ed, and her uncle, Sid, a rare and meaningful connection that beautifully bridges generations. And I don't think Lindsay could be with us today, but when you see her, you might shake her hand and thank her for that history. And these are more than just family stories, they are living history in our club. The Clark and Patterson families remind us that Rotary is not just something we join, it's something we carry forward. Their legacies challenge each of us to consider the mark that we will leave, the lives we will touch, and the traditions that we'll pass on. Because in the end, Rotary's greatest legacy isn't measured in years or titles. It's found in people, in service, and in the generations who choose to continue the story. We're all a part of that. Let's not forget it. Please join me in welcoming our Sergeant at Arms, Shanna Vollmer, to the side mic.
Thank you, Carl. Gosh, a lot of new faces in the room. Thought I was actually in the wrong room when I came in. So many new people. We're glad to have you. Welcome. So today we've got a couple celebrations. First up, happy birthday to Ray. Ray, are you in the room? Anybody seen Ray? Hey there, way in the back. Ray, happy birthday, March 23rd. Let's give him a hand. Thank you for your kind donation of $250. Outstanding. All right, next up, actually we've got Karen McCannell, I said that wrong, McConnell. Shop with a Cop did a donation to Shop with a Cop for $250. Thank you very much, Karen. Now, this next picture I got to share some of these. So, who in the room for $250? Who in the room just participated in the Shop with a Cop this last December? Stand up, stand up. I want to see these people. Look at this. Now, for those of you that's ever participated with Shop with a Cop, stand up. Come on, don't be shy. There we go. Look at all these people. Shop with a Cop's a great program. Thank you so much, Karen McCannell, for your donation. Great pictures. All right, I have a request. I have a need. So, Tulsa Tough, June 6th. Rotary sponsors and works and volunteers one of those days on that Saturday. I need 16 people. The link is in your email that Tina sends out. Looking for 16, need to get those signed up. Please don't let me report back that Rotary failed. I know it's kind of last minute. If you have problems entering and finding the slots, they're like 2-hour slots. I think there's 6 of them total. 3 people at each one. We had a lot of fun. Raise your hand if you participated last year in Tulsa Tough. Yep, there you go. We had a lot of fun. I encourage you to come out. It's so great to watch, and a big role we play in that. So if you can help me out, I'd appreciate it. All right, next up, Hannibal. So I always say, I've got the best job in the house. It's coming to an end soon. But I get to sit down and talk to members and really get to know them. And I got to tell you, each and every one has been special. But Hannibal, oh my gosh, you just really get to know a person. And I left there like, I wanted to be more. I wanted to do more. He's just that kind of guy. We had a really great time. Thank you, Sheree Gardner, for sponsoring Hannibal. Yes. Okay. Round of applause for Sheree. Love our sponsors. Brian Jackson, where are you? I saw you in the room. Thank you so much for letting us use JA. I'll kind of mention we were at JA and the kids were there, which we always love seeing the kids, but there was a lot of hooping and hollering going on during our interview. So I did my best with my technical skills to drown out some of that, so don't pay attention to the baubles. I've always told you these are rough and raw. But we really had a great time. Hannibal and I are both on the board, so getting to know him more and more. So want to share his message and his journey in Rotary.
So Richard Small sponsored me. I believe it was like 2010, 2011. Jeff Hassel appointed me to chair Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. And I credit him with pushing me to get more deeply involved. I was on the board, ended up serving as president maybe 7 years ago. One of the things that's really important to me in all the work that I do is creating a shared sense of humanity. Because if we have that notion of shared humanity, it's really difficult for us to violate the rights of other people. It's difficult for us to otherize people that aren't like us if we understand that we share humanity, and that's what binds us here.
What were some of that you were joining?
Range planning is what I'm on now, and I would be chair of long-range planning. That's more strategic focus for the club. Where's the club heading, and what do we need to do to get in position to be successful? Tilly Clinton serving number one. The committee that I have not served on, but programmatically I really admire is Above and Beyond. I love that program.
What's a Rotary moment you'll never forget?
We took a photo there. It's been several years ago. Understanding that the monument is forever. It's a gift to the city commensurate with our anniversary, with our 100th anniversary. Tim is no longer with us, and remembering that.
What does service above self mean to you?
For me, it's really about an obligation that I feel to serve the community. There's an adage that says service is the rent we pay for living. And I really do believe that. And I also believe that there's a self-interest in service. It's important to step outside yourself and understand that you're not alone, that you are among other people, and that there are shared responsibilities.
What has it given to you in your life?
The most obvious thing is connections, because part of the value of Rotary is networking and making connections with people.
The vision for the future.
The one thing that we need to do is become more outward facing, get more involved in the community so the community knows about us and what we're doing.
What do you do for fun?
On weekends, I'll go down to the river and run. So running is a hobby. That's also very relaxing and stress relief. For just escape, I see a lot of movies. I love Circle Cinema.
Always your dream to be a lawyer?
I didn't always want to be a lawyer. I think at 8th grade, I wanted to be a psychologist. I decided that going to law school would enhance my options. So I went to law school at Harvard. I came to Tulsa, worked for a law firm. I'm from Fort Smith, Arkansas. I've, for the last 20-odd years, had a consulting business. I'm consulting in a nonprofit, leadership management, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for the last 20-odd years plus, I've been writing primarily history, the history of Greenwood District, Black Wall Street, the all-black towns in Oklahoma. I do a lot of speaking around the country, primarily on Greenwood history.
Talk about some of the connections that you've made that have been really instrumental in your life.
It's really the simple things. There's not anything grand about the being in the club. The fellowship, the engagement, the networking, the ability to channel philanthropic efforts and collectively make a huge impact.
What would be your walk-up song or your karaoke song?
I love Motown 60s and 70s primarily. I also love disco, because that's when I was in high school. Disco Inferno, Rabbit Tramps.
Advice would you give members as they come in?
Explore. Don't overcommit.
Okay.
Find your place and know that there is a place for you.
What's one of the things that you would advise all members to really consider as we look into the future?
We are best when we focus on how we can play a role in servicing and elevating the community.
Let's give Hannibal a round of applause. I encourage you to find him, go have a cup of coffee. Our conversation, have to dial it down to 4, is always very tough, sharing these member spotlights, but just an incredible person, incredible human being, and does a lot for this community. So thank you, guys.
I wanted to be a psychologist, and I love Disco Inferno. I'm not sure about that, Hannibal. Holy cow, man. Hannibal's a valuable asset to our club. So now I get to introduce our Rotarian of the Day. You may want to note that our Rotarian of the Day is a multi-generational member of our club. He's also our programs chair, which makes him one of my favorite people in the room. Chaz Craig is a native Tulsan and attended Oklahoma State University, where he graduated summa cum laude with degrees in both accounting and finance in 2009, which means he's a whole lot smarter than I am. In addition to being a CFA charter holder, he also holds the CPA and CFP professional designations. Chaz is the principal of CEC Wealth Management, where he provides customized financial advice and portfolio management services to individuals and institutions. Provide advice to any institutionalized individuals? No. He has also been an adjunct lecturer in the investments course at OSU Tulsa. He regularly provides presentations on market and economic topics and is a financial columnist for the Journal Record. Chaz has served various community organizations over the years and enjoys spending time with his wife and their 3 children. Please welcome our Rotarian of the day and my favorite person in the room right now, Chaz Craig.
Thank you, Carl, for the warm introduction. Our speaker today, my brother, Colton Craig, has an impossibly impressive resume, filled with far too many accolades to begin listing them here. He's a gifted golf course architect and, generally speaking, a very gifted entrepreneur as well. And like many people that are so gifted in their fields, he's had a passion for it for a long, long time. I have a vivid memory of 4-year-old Colton coming to me, I would have been 10 at the time, in the living room with a golf course routing that he had drawn, and told me he wanted to be a golf course architect, and he wanted my validation, of course, on his drawing, which I actually think I remember thinking this is pretty impressive. And so I have the great distinction of not telling him that was a bad career path. So I'm proud of that. Colton's trajectory of the last few years has really been something to behold. This is a guy who was excited about getting to redo some of the bunkers at Cushing Country Club just a few years ago, and is now doing full courses that are gaining national notoriety, hitting hole-in-ones with Bill Murray, chumming around with Jason Kelsey. It's really been exciting to watch. He's also a real student of his craft, very much approaches it in a historian sort of way, generally speaking, but also specifically regarding Perry Maxwell, which he's going to share more about us today. So please help me in welcoming Colton Craig.
Hello. Happy Wednesday. I got to say, I hit the road pretty hard, and probably about 75 hotel rooms last year. And I speak probably 30 times a year to clubs or boards and typically I'm telling them that their golf course is going to close and that I need their money. And something about being home, I'm more nervous right now than I've been in probably 2 years. But grew up here in Tulsa, went to Bishop Kelly. My first jobs in golf were caddying and working maintenance at Southern Hills, which is a Perry Maxwell gym. I should back up. Who here is familiar with Perry Maxwell and just a relative fan of the game of golf or a golfer? Okay, wonderful. This is mostly for you all, but also for you non-golfers in the room. This is a true American success story and something that I think you will find interesting as well. So I went to Oklahoma State. I went to Oklahoma State and studied architecture after working maintenance at Southern Hills. Then, like Chaz said, I always wanted to be a golf course architect. Got an opportunity to work on some construction crews in the summers during college, and started working for a firm here locally in Oklahoma for about 1.5 years. Found out I was going to have a child, and then immediately turned in my notice of resignation and started my own firm. Not probably the wisest move, but it just felt like my risk tolerance was only going to go down. And so that was 7.5 years ago. On my path, I've met some really wonderful people that have become my business partners and really my best friends. Tom Coyne, the gentleman on the far left, he's the most well-traveled golfer in the history of golf. He's written numerous, probably 6 New York Times best-selling books about his travels, and he's got a huge following on social media. He runs the #2 podcast in golf. And then the gentleman in the middle, Steve Smyers, he's kind of our sage mentor. He's someone we recently merged with in the most, 18 months. We merged firms, and he's been on president of every organization you can imagine in golf, executive committee of the USGA, design courses on all 6 continents. He's someone who's been just a wonderful partner. And I've always said if they're running for president of golf, Tom Coyne and Steve Smyers would be a great ticket, because you have the Mr. Establishment and you have the Mr. Grassroots. And I'm very, very fortunate to get to just sit between them and basically just do the work. So real quick commercial on us. We just opened this in Edmond. It's a course I actually now live on. Graves Golf Club. Rolling Hills is a project in Kentucky that's opening here in July 31st. Bloomington Country Club opening July 1. That's been really fun to be part of a organization or a club in the college town of a team that won the national championship this year. Oldfield, Mocksville, North Carolina. It's a faith-based community course for children. And then just in the last year, we opened a place called Sullivan County Golf Club, which Tom Coyne was part of the ownership group on. So it's kind of random when your partner becomes a client, but it's great. And he wrote a book about it that's going to do great, and it was featured on CBS Sunday Morning just 2 weeks ago. So national television is rare to get for our clients, and that was awesome. As already alluded to, on opening day, I was very fortunate to get to make a hole-in-one on a golf hole that was somewhat criticized with fellow owner Bill Murray. So that was fun. That was an expensive night. Project in Georgia under construction at Lake Oconee. We've been brought in by the Athletic Casino in Albuquerque, so it's been great getting to work with the tribe, our first native tribe to work with. Entrepreneur team in outside of Colorado Springs called the Abbey. They bought a 100-year-old Catholic monastery that they're going to convert into a hotel and build a resort golf course. Lazy J Sporting Club in Ideal, South Dakota, 5th-generation ranching family, wonderful people, largest Angus beef producers in the world. They had 20,000 acres. They told me to go find 18 holes. That will probably never happen again. And then we just on Friday got signed up by a group called Sunken Prairie in Webster, South Dakota. So somehow I'm in South Dakota now. But what I'm here to talk about today is Perry Maxwell. The first thing I did when I started this business 7.5 years ago was, first thing, I had nothing to do. And I was sitting there, and I guess I had the idea that I'm going to go visit every single Perry Maxwell golf course that still exists and post about it on social and have that be a way to bring in attention, I guess, and help establish my group. So it took about 9 months to secure our first commission, which those were, a long few months, but we became very obsessive about Perry Maxwell, and we've written a book about him, which is going to come out later this year. So anyone, one more shameless plug. Anyone interested in a copy, please come find me afterwards. So Perry Maxwell was a Kentucky native. He grew up in a small town called Princeton, just a town of 3,000. He just excelled in sports. He was the valedictorian of his school. He's sitting there at the top as a teenager, kind of looking like a rebel with his knee up. This was his childhood home. His father was a doctor, and his mother was a Sunday school teacher. So kind of the all-American upbringing. He was known for being an obsessive reader. Something I heard recently from a politician, every once in a while they say something wise, but he said what did he say? He said from 0 to 7, you learn to read. From 7 on, you read to learn. Perry Maxwell was known to be an obsessive reader. He had to actually drop out of college due to tuberculosis, but the dean of the University of Oklahoma gave him a great compliment toward the end of his life, saying he's the most educated man he's ever met. And that's from a man of high rank in academia. He met his wife in school and married his childhood sweetheart, Ray. They moved to Oklahoma. The land run shortly happened after. They bought this home in Ardmore, Oklahoma for $5,000, modest home, and he was a banker at the First National Bank in Ardmore, the actual very first bank in Oklahoma. And it turned out to be a wise decision. You know, it was very much the move west young man. You know, there is impending statehood on the horizon. Lots of, you know, kind of, it was, you know, I love Oklahoma in the sense that we're the melting pot of the melting pot. And I think that's special. But he got lucky when resource rich, and he was basically financing a lot of the oil ventures in Ardmore, which at one point was known, at least, you know, hard to measure, but Ardmore at one point was known to have more millionaires per capita than any place in the world. And so things were good, and he became an obsessive tennis player, and he was huge about maintaining his tennis lawn, and everyone knew about Perry Maxwell's tennis lawn. His wife noticed that he was getting quite thin, and he needed to take up the game of golf, which was largely unknown to the country at this time in 1912. And she said, he said, golf's an old man's game, and she said, well, tennis is making an old man of you. 1913, very famous event happened in golf. Francis Ouimet, if anyone familiar with the Shia LaBeouf, The Greatest Game Ever Played movie, a common man beat two British greats in the U.S. Open, and he was a caddy at the club, and it was just kind of a true underdog story. The newspaper headline was One David versus Two Goliaths, and that really spurred interest in golf across the country. Perry Maxwell also read a magazine that his wife got, Scribner magazine, and there was an article in it called The Ideal Golf Links by H.J. Wingham. And this was really the initial inspiration. And these are just very rough sketches of National Golf Links of America, which is a top 3 club in the world in Long Island. And he made some interesting points about how this new design has ushered in a new era in golf, and what he didn't know he was describing was the golden age of golf architecture. These are just, again, very almost caveman-like sketches, but these are the initial sketches that Perry Maxwell saw about golf courses and said, wow, this is different. And quick snippet from our book in the bottom, we talk about, you know, how it's completely contrary to the sport of tennis in its harsh dimensions. Golf is a game that has no dimensions. And so the combination of sport and agronomy is what drew Maxwell to tennis, but the ultimate trifecta of sport, agronomy, and art is what claimed his heart. Anyone in the room willing to admit they've played golf on sand greens? Few hands. So this was largely what golf was in Oklahoma prior to Perry Maxwell. He wrote the Department of Agriculture because there was no Google Gemini or ChatGPT back then. And they said, you're too far south for bluegrass and a little too far north for Bermuda grass. And so he had to go on field trips. He eventually traveled to New York and met with the USGA and just kind of told them, I want to build a golf course in Oklahoma. And they wrote him letters of recommendations to some cool places, and he got to go see National Golf Links of America. So those kind of crude sketches I showed you earlier, these are them in real life. So the sketches had come to life for Perry Maxwell. He came back to Ardmore and built Dornick Hills. And when you build a golf course and you're a wealthy banker, you join a lot of associations and become very, very popular. One of my favorites, though, is he was the sergeant at arms for the Ardmore Rotary Club over 105 years ago. So, Shannon, if you didn't know, you had a lot in common with the father of Oklahoma golf. I'm pretty sure back then he was actually armed, but, you know, so. Yeah. So, different times. But impressive resume. But more impressive was his friends and the company he kept. He was friends with Will Rogers. They were both leading gentlemen of the state at the time. Obviously, Will Rogers, probably the most famous Oklahoman ever, comedian, entertainer. So kind of the epitome of Western culture success. But lesser-known friends of his, Dr. Tagaroo, I cannot pronounce his first name, is the guru in the middle. He won the Nobel Prize for translating Indian, Far Eastern philosophy into English. And so kind of a unique personality, definitely a foil to Will Rogers, right? And he was friends with both these guys. He was also friends with the President Taft. I was going to say Theodore Roosevelt, but President Taft in the top right, and he was best friends and lifelong friends with Governor Cruz, bottom right, who was the second governor of the state of Oklahoma, who was a fellow Kentuckian and immigrant from Kentucky. So the point I'm trying to make is that he had just a broad interest and broad personality that seemed to appear well in all company. Tragically, his wife at the age of 40 died. Her appendix ruptured, and everything couldn't have been more perfect, right? You're a wealthy banker, you have your own private golf course, and tragedy struck. Life happened, and he had 4 children, 1 baby and 3 daughters. All went on to become successful young ladies, and the son became a partner in the business later on. A few years later, he traveled to Scotland to kind of educate himself further and met Dr. Alistair McKenzie, who's kind of the Michael Jordan of my world, and they hit it off, and he studied the great courses of Scotland. I was fortunate to get awarded a scholarship a year or 2 ago from the World 100 Club that sends one golf architect a year over there, and it's without question a different. I can't describe it, but it's just a different culture over there, more communal based. And Perry Maxwell felt the same. He said, "We have learned nothing from Scotland or England, where the ancient honorable game can be played on the marvelous links for 1/10 the admission fee that prevails in the land of the free." So, he took his banking acumen and brought it to the design world. Alistair McKenzie then comes to America 3 years later and sees 3 of his properties, most notably Twin Hills in Oklahoma City, and selects Perry Maxwell to be his Midwest associate east of the Rocky Mountains. They did 4 projects in a 6 to 8 year period of time: Melrose, Philadelphia, University of Michigan, Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club, and most famously Crystal Downs in Frankfort, Michigan, which is a second home community for the wealthy. Dr. Alistair McKenzie gave him some really nice compliments, which were rare. Okay, fun facts. He was present for the 1930 U.S. Amateur that Bobby Jones won the famous Grand Slam at. He also was present at the very first Masters, and his brochure was found. He spent the second half of his life in Tulsa. Excuse me. He spent the second half of his life in Tulsa, and his house was later found, and there was an auctioneer who went, and they found this. It was in North Tulsa, and the value of the original brochure that was found from that was valued higher than the value of that property it was found in. The 1930s is when he really caught stride, and I would say he entered his prime. He became the consultant at Augusta National, kind of largely unknown. A big portion of why Augusta looks the way it does today is because of Perry Maxwell. Southern Hills, we're all very familiar with that, 1936. Southern Hills. Prairie Dunes, 37. He considered this his favorite. Old Town Club, 1939. Winston-Salem, right next to Wake Forest. And Colonial, ahead of the 1941 U.S. Open, designed the course. And what's great, though, is that during this time he was working for literally, presidents and the elite of the Northeast, but half of his body of work is here in Oklahoma. So almost every small town club here in Oklahoma has a Perry Maxwell golf course, which I think speaks a little bit to his person. And one of my favorite quotes I've ever found of his, "It's not how much you spend in building a golf course, but how you spend it." That's absurdly relevant today. There is a project in Florida that costs $200 million, and there's no reason for a golf course to ever cost more than 20, if not less. Pearl Harbor, United States enter into World War II, obviously that put a screeching halt to golf development. During World War II, he got an X-ray burn, got radiation on his body, and it spread throughout, and they had to amputate a leg. So, he's lost a wife, he's lost a leg, he's had all the success, but he's still had some fairly significant traumas. His son came and joined him in the business, but the amputation ultimately wasn't successful, and he lost his life in the back room of this house just north of Kane's Ballroom in 1952. And I forgot to mention this, but when Ray passed, his wife passed, he buried her at their golf course in Ardmore at their favorite picnic spot and erected these Roman columns. And he's also now buried there. 30 years later, he got reunited with his beloved Ray. So Perry Maxwell, known for his greens, he was the most famous agronomist, known for his green designs, his natural-looking bunkers, blend seamlessly in the landscape. Kind of the way the teeing grounds work. And a lesser-known fact is that about 1 in every 100 golf holes he designed, he had a central fairway tree. This is Old Town Club in 1940. So he was a wonderful man to write a biography on, not just because his life was interesting, but because life was interesting. For about 5,000 years before his life, horse and buggy was the place of transportation. About 10, 15 years after his death, we landed on the moon. So kind of dramatic technological changes happened. There was 2 world wars. There was a Great Depression. So all the peripheral macro stuff going on was quite exciting to write about. And hopefully I got to Q&A quick enough. But so that's the life of Perry Maxwell. I find it to be one of a true American success story and an Oklahoman success story. And so thank you for your time, and thank you to the Rotary of Tulsa.
Tell us what projects you have going right now.
Projects right now, we have a project in New Mexico. That's our largest commission to date, 36 holes for a casino resort called the Isleta Pueblo, and that starts in the fall, and a number of others in South Dakota, and so those are kind of the primary.
Are you working to get any overseas assignments?
Absolutely. We're currently interviewing right now in Ireland, and we've had some opportunities in Dubai, but they kind of go at their own pace. So we interviewed a year and a half ago, and they said, you got it, and then it's just like kind of crickets. So royalty moves at whatever pace it wants to move at. So
Here's one right here.
yes.
Did he design around the famous Eisenhower tree?
I don't know if the Eisenhower tree was around yet. I'm not. That's a good question, but I know that sparked a lot of debate when it came out. But he definitely did work on the 17th hole, and 17th hole. But most notably, like the rear bunkers on 12. That's maybe the most photographed golf hole in the world. He put those in. The 10th green, he moved the 10th green entirely. The 7th green, he moved entirely. So Bobby Jones credits him with designing half of Augusta National. Yes, sir.
What's your favorite course?
I love Old Town Club in Winston-Salem. It's one of the most efficient routings in the world. It's actually more efficient than the old course in St. Andrews from a walkability standpoint, which is important to me. And it just feels right. And it's just kind of a cool club. It's still a country club. There's still racket and pool. Don't get me wrong, I love golf clubs that are just pure golf. but there's something charming about a small town country club that I think the market's actually ready for a couple dozen more of them in the United States. Yes?
What are the characteristics of a Perry Maxwell golf course?
Repeat the question.
Characteristics of a Perry Maxwell golf course. Can we go back to the presentation by chance, if possible? The very end of it? Or the very beginning? Okay. Okay. He was, without a doubt, if you were to summarize him in one word, a minimalist. He was an economist. But his design work didn't suffer because he used the natural landscape so well. Let me try to find some. Okay, here we are. So you can see that there's native grasses growing on the back sides of bunkers. That's something that others may see as unsightly or unclean, but he embraced that naturalness. Also, he would often have about 20, I think he said 20 to 25 bunkers is plenty on a golf course. And he actually at one point was pretty critical of Oakmont in Pittsburgh, fairly famous U.S. Open venue that has over 200. And he called it like the ugliest course he'd ever seen or something like that. So he wasn't without opinion. But and his routings were often very axial, so would almost like wagon wheel on themselves and come back to a central power point, if that makes sense. So Southern Hills is a good example of that, where the fourth green comes back to the clubhouse, 1T, 9, 18, 10. But then there's other areas of axis where 13 green, 15 green, 17T, all that area at Southern Hills. So I guess if you were to describe his routing techniques, I would say very axial as opposed to linear. Yes. Yes, sir.
Are the number of courses in the U.S. about the same today as they have been? Are they growing or?
We're getting rid of some. We're still closing more than we're opening, but the ones we're opening are of very high quality, and the ones we're closing tend to be of lower quality. So we're not quite to equilibrium, but I think there's probably 100 courses that close a year in the United States, and I think we're opening about 50, maybe 40. A lot of golf development in the 90s was based around real estate development and urban sprawl and subdivision. And when you sell that last lot, when that developer sells that last lot and they see that their golf course is maybe taking a $250,000, $500,000 loss each year, the motivation to keep that open is low. And so you've seen a lot of real estate courses fail across the United States, whereas opposed to the ones we're building now are more resort driven, and the economics are driven by the game of golf, not by some exterior economy. Yes.
As an entrepreneur, I'm curious, what percentage of your business is renovation versus start from scratch?
Yeah.
And a sub-question to that is, what kind of feedback and what are you doing about it, if anything, on those who critique water and fertilizer overusage?
Yes. Yes. Great. So the industry of golf right now, my industry, about 90% is renovation, 10% new course, as far as just dollars allocated throughout the industry. My firm is very focused on trying to be new course guys, because only about half a dozen each generation get to be that. And so 70% of our work is new courses, maybe even more. So we're niche within a very niche industry. As far as fertilizer and water usage, I had a really interesting conversation, so it's timely you asked that, with Dr. Wu, who's one of the top, he's from Japan, one of the top turf grass breeders in the world, and he said we're 10 to 15 years away from having golf course grasses that don't need to be irrigated. Because right now the way they develop turf grasses is true trial by error. I mean, 4 foot by 4 foot squares all over for acres, and they just stress them out and see who wins. Okay, let's use this grass. This is the best grass. But with new technologies, they can identify the exact DNA and hand pick exactly what they want from color to drought tolerance. If that's the case, irrigation installs half of golf course construction. We would see an explosion of thousands of golf courses if that happened. Yes. Yes.
Do you have anything to do with the redo of Oklahoma State's golf course?
No, sir. Nope.
Got one more. Ben Brill.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Technology is making some differences, distances, also physiology of people.
Right.
Does that make any difference to you?
It does to my partner, Steve Smyers, who's, he was a national champion golfer at the University of Florida and is very much the athlete of our team. I'm more focused on doing big art. But yes, and I mean, there's big debates on ball rollback and equipment rollback. I try to stay agnostic to it, though. Just kind of stay in my lane. There's an interesting debate about limiting the tee height, and now you're not stepping into Callaway's pocketbook, who's publicly traded. So I don't know. Perry Maxwell predicted that people would drive the ball 300 yards in 1940 when the average driving distance on the tour was 230. I think anything beyond 300 yards for the best players in the world, where they're starting to average 320, 330, I think there could be a 10% rollback could be beneficial. I have one more. I'm going to take one more.
Can you give us an idea of some of the small courses around Tulsa that Perry Maxwell?
Yes, Mohawk Park, the original city course, was a Perry Maxwell course. He actually had a number of others that are now neighborhoods. One just south of Big Splash was, that neighborhood was a public golf course, I think called Highland Park. He had a golf course just west of Tulsa Country Club. That was a public golf course. That's now a neighborhood. Obviously Southern Hills, Bristow Country Club, a really cool 9-holer. That's what comes to mind. Oh, Hillcrest in Bartlesville is kind of a hidden gem that is a real treat. Cool town, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. He said he was nervous. He didn't seem very nervous to me. He seemed like he knew what he was talking about. Colton, we appreciate you being here with us today, and we sure appreciate your brother and your folks being here with you. Thank you so much. We're giving a book today to our partner in education, Celia Clinton. You'll never believe the name of this book. It's Help, Dad, I Lost My Golf Ball. Jenny Hammock got that for us again. Does such a great job with that. We got some great upcoming programs. Next week, Laura Garrett, our incoming district governor, will be here. Karen McCannell will actually be handling that meeting for us because Laura is going to be district governor when Karen is president. Laura has an ongoing mission towards dealing with Alzheimer's disease. I think you'll find what she has to say very interesting. You noticed that earlier today, Steve Koonsweiler was back here sitting next to my brother-in-law, and Steve will be here with the person running against him for a forum or a debate. Then June 17th, Tom Harrison, past pastor of Asbury Church, will be here talking about his escape from Israel. He was in Tel Aviv in October of 2024 when the attack happened. And I mean, he was literally down in the basement of a building while the bombs were going off. It's quite an interesting tale. Want to take a moment to thank our Membership Engagement Committee for the conversation towers on your tables with questions about Rotary to talk to each other about. They do a good job with that. Also, you'll see the placards on your table for our Rotary Club sponsors. We appreciate our sponsors. Please consider doing business with your Rotary fellow members first. We appreciate their partnership to keep our club strong. Thank you for all of you who came here today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for making a difference in our community. We hope to see you again. And with that, We are adjourned.